In this entire episode, we're recording with the DR-07XP right here. And I've got the microphones configured in the XY position, so kind of a tight stereo pickup. And that's what you're hearing through this entire episode. And what we've done here is we've normalized it to minus 23 LUFS, sort of a standard loudness level, so that we didn't have to do any processing, so you can hear what the recording sounds like pretty much straight out of the recorder. Okay. What is new with this latest version of the DR-07? This is the XP version. It has two main things that are new. Number one, a USB-C port instead of previous types of USB ports. And then second, 32-bit float recording. So if you just want to know what the difference is, those are the main differences. But there's some other things too that I think are really important. Number one, some people complained about RF interference with the previous version. And I did some tests here with my phone, both with Wi-Fi, with LTE, and also with a wireless transmitter, the Deity Theos. And I didn't get any interference unless I held the Deity Theos antenna within like 2 centimeters of the microphones. If I kept it any farther away from that, zero interference of any sort from any sort of radio frequency common devices. So it seems like this newest version has some RF shielding that perhaps previous versions didn't have. So really good job from TASCAM there. So what is this thing? First of all, it's a stereo recorder, small handheld recorder that you can configure in an XY pattern, which is kind of a tighter stereo pickup. It won't sound quite as wide, but of course it is a stereo recording. The advantage of an XY is that you won't get any sort of extreme phasing issues because the two microphone pickups are right next to each other. They're cardioid pickup as well, so they pick up mainly in the front and a lot less in the back. And then you can also configure them as a spaced A-B pair. So it's not super wide, but it is definitely wider than an XY. And here's a sample for you. Okay, now here is a directionality sample with the microphones configured in their A-B position, so kind of a wider stereo image. And you can see as I move the microphones over here, you're hearing me in one channel more than the other, and then likewise over on this side. And then as I turn and talk into the side of the recorder, this is what it sounds like. And as I turn and talk into the back of the recorder, this is what it sounds like. Again, at this point, mostly reflected sound, coming back around to the side, and then back directly into the microphones. I'm right in the center here. Now I'm talking directly into the right microphone, now directly into the left microphone. I think I got that right. As I mentioned before, this does do 32-bit float recording up to 96 kilohertz sample rates. So for those that think that 32-bit float's really neat, this has it. It does have a 3.5 millimeter input, so if you want to connect an external lavalier microphone, you can do that. Here's a sample. Now here's an example with the RODE Lavalier II lavalier microphone, which I'm wearing just here on my chest, and that's plugged into the 3.5 millimeter input on the TASCAM DR-07XP, and this is what it sounds like. So this will give you a sense for how clean and how the 3.5 millimeter input sounds. It also has a 3.5 millimeter output for either headphones or for powered speakers if you want to feed the audio to powered speakers, and the headphone amp is okay. It is a little bit on the noisy side. It could even drive headphones up to 250 ohms. We tested that, although it is a little bit noisy when you're driving those higher impedance headphones. So I would use something with less than 100 ohm spec on your headphones and you should be fine. The USB-C port, of course, can be used to power the unit. It can also be used so that you can read the card within the recorder, and it can also be used as an audio interface. The recorder is powered by 2 AA batteries typically, in addition to the USB-C port, and with 2 nickel metal hydride LODE batteries from IKEA, the 2450 milliamp hour versions. I was able to power this recorder, recording in 32-bit float the entire time for 14 hours and 25 minutes. Amazing. So it's going to power for plenty of time for most of us doing field recording. It records to microSDXC cards, so pretty standard out there. The LCD screen is pretty good. It's easy to navigate and operate the menus. It's pretty easy to see. Even when you're outdoors, it's not too bad for seeing out. So in fact, it's better than most color screens outdoors. So they did a nice job there. It does have a built-in speaker just so you can play things back to make sure you got the take. It's not a hi-fi kind of experience, but it's enough to make sure you got what you needed to. Also, when our batteries did run out at one point, what was interesting is I wanted to make sure that it still captured the recording that was in progress when the batteries ran out. And in fact, it did. So we lost maybe a couple of seconds at the end, but overall, it saved the recording. So even if you do find yourself in a situation where the batteries run out, it's going to keep recording up to within a few seconds of when those batteries run out. Fantastic feature there. Now, file naming. You can also choose whether you want the recorder to name the file based on the current date, or you can specify a custom word. Nice to have that. How clean are the microphones? Well, here's some silence in my fairly quiet room. Overall, the audio is normalized to -23 as we mentioned at the LUFS, as we mentioned at the start. So that'll give you a sense for the noise floor that it's going to capture in a fairly quiet room. So just a really practical kind of example there. Cons. Now, first, the recorder only records files up to 2 gigabytes in size, and then as soon as it hits that limit, it starts a new recording. So in post, you have to kind of string them back together if you're doing long form recordings. This is not unique to the DR-07XP. Almost every recorder I've ever used, audio recorder I've ever used, does that, with the exception of my Sound Devices 888, which is a ridiculously expensive field recorder. I'd really like to see audio recorders overcome that by using a more modern file system and format so that it wouldn't be tied to that 2 gigabyte limit. So again, not a huge criticism specifically of the DR-07. This is an issue with almost all audio recorders. And then finally, as I mentioned before, the headphone amp is a little bit on the noisy side. I would be hesitant to use it to feed audio to camera unless it's just going to be scratch audio to the camera. So just something to keep in mind there. So overall, my take, this is a decent little handheld recorder. It's a lot of fun to work with. I love that it has the ability to switch the microphones from XY to AB, space pair. And that gives you the ability kind of to get a more coherent, less phasey kind of stereo image, or to get a more wide stereo image when you're recording sound effects or things like that. So fun little tool for recording audio for your videos, especially sound effects for your videos. And does it outshine recorders 20 times its price? Obviously not. It is a less than $200 recorder, and I think it's fairly priced for what you're getting, which is a fun little thing that can help you make fun little ambient and sound effects recordings. So get out there, make some great sound. We'll talk to you again soon.